Hello and welcome to Insights in Action with Orange 142, where we interview agency leaders and business owners to uncover the journeys, the strategies, and the insights that drive their success. At Orange 142, we're all about transforming brand stories and impactful digital experiences through innovative media and marketing solutions. Today, I am lucky to be joined by Ginger of Pinstripe Marketing. How's it going, Ginger?
Going very well, thanks.
Yeah, well, Ginger, I would love to start this off just by learning a little bit about you and your background and a little bit more about Pinstripe marketing.
Sure. I've told my origin story several times, but the Cliff Notes version is that I knew that I wanted an ad agency when I was in the seventh grade.
Wow.
And so just put myself on a path from that point, taking every class, joining every club, every professional association, and working in some really big organizations to learn not only the marketing side, but also how to run a business. And through that, ended up starting Pinstripe 26 years ago.
Wow, 26 years.
Yeah.
First of all, so much to unpack there, right? First of all, I feel like a lot of people in marketing, more than any other industry, just fall into marketing. So it's very rare to hear that you have just, what was that initial driving, like that piece for you where you're just like, I
Yeah.
want to, that's not many seventh graders' dreams, right?
That's how nerdy I am. I don't know. I've been asked that question a lot, and I just think about how I was the kid that recorded the Super Bowl and cut out the game, and just so I could watch those commercials again.
Yeah.
And I my friends all had posters and pictures of cute boys on their walls, and I had advertisements that were ripped out. I was just always drawn to the creativity and everything around it. And then just took myself on that path. And so I never really considered anything else. And that's actually one of my regrets is that I had such blinders on that I didn't really pursue anything else.
Well, did it at least, I don't know, waterfall into other things like psychology? There's a lot of psychology in marketing. Did you have an interest in that?
Yeah, my minor was sociology.
Okay.
So just studying people and what makes them tick and how people move
Yeah.
and pack together and so that helped a little bit, but all of my classes and everything else was definitely marketing, PR, advertising, communications. It's always been that.
Yeah, I love that. And you've had an agency now for 26 years, you said. That's pretty rare in and of itself to have,
Yeah.
agencies don't usually stick around that long.
Well, and it's been one of those things where it started just me in a spare bedroom with a laptop and a cell phone, and it grew up to several people in a cool space downtown in St. Petersburg. Now everybody being scattered again and everybody working remote. So it's gone through a lot of iterations and sort of flexing and reducing based on kind of the clients and the climate and what was going on. So
Mhm.
it's definitely had several chapters, but I think going into it, this is going to be a really good one.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Pinstripe Marketing specializes in B2B services for professionals like lawyers, doctors, and engineers. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Most of our clients are B2B professional services. And so they were also people that sort of picked their goal in life and they went to law school, they went to medical school,
Yeah.
they went to business school, and they've got these licenses and credentials and things. And so they aren't really considering other paths in life either. And I can speak their language because I'm just as nerdy as they are, I
Right.
guess.
Well, I'm curious, how do you approach tailoring your strategies to meet the unique needs of these highly specialized and often regulated industries?
That's a really good question. So, what I have found is that on paper, it's very hard to differentiate one to the other. And
Right.
so, from our strategic standpoint, what's nice about it is that they don't have to spend a lot of time training us on what they do.
Mm.
We can really spend time digging into what makes them different to where if you're selling a product or you've got a restaurant or something and you can really differentiate based on what you're serving, who the chef is and what kind of goes into it, and you've got the location and you've got the vibe and the environment. And with services you really don't have any of that on the outside. And so
Yeah.
you really have to focus on the professional and their skill set and their track record and how they approach business and what their clients have to say about them and all of those things working together. So we really focus on differentiators and because otherwise everybody would sound exactly the same.
Yeah, that's true. And so there is brand to it. It's just it's different. It works a little bit differently. You have to really box the brand up in and that's I don't know, restrictive, but you have to really think about the brand in a very professional way. How does it relate to other professionals rather than this like Coca-Cola? What is that brand, right? And
Right,
so
right.
it seems like an interesting challenge.
It is, especially like you mentioned in those regulated industries where you have to fit inside what the bar association allows you to do when it comes to marketing, what the SEC is going to let you talk about in your advertising. And so it's those things that we've got our guardrails in place on what we're allowed to do. So how do we differentiate within that space that really makes it challenging, but also very rewarding when you do it right?
Right. And so you were just a second ago, you were describing your clients as nerds, right? In the best
Yeah,
possible way, like really
right.
highly intelligent professionals. But how did your team's approach to marketing help amplify the expertise of your guys' clients while keeping their messaging relatable and engaging?
We end up working with clients that have oftentimes worked with other agencies or other freelancers or folks before. And what they have found is that a lot of them just don't get it. And so they may be really talented writers, but they can't get their head around what is happening in law, what is happening in finance, what is happening in healthcare. And so from a content perspective, we bring in I have a team of specialists, particularly in the writing area, where they already know that market. They're embedded into it. And so they really understand it. And so what we can do is we have the kind of the core of the message, but then we can layer on their voice when we're
Mhm,
communicating it. And so
mhm.
it's this nice balance where they don't have to spend a lot of time explaining to us what the meat of it is, but really digging into what makes them different. Again, we're back to differentiators, but really how to express their voice. And that voice is part of the brand.
Wow. And I imagine that coming from other agencies to yours, where you've got this specialized team, your clients they can almost breathe the sigh of relief. Okay, somebody understands it. Do you experience that a lot?
Yeah, because the first 6 months of an engagement is really when we're spending our time, the deep dives to really find out what makes them special. And then once we get past that 6 month mark and we start generating content on their behalf, and the first time that they read it or the first time they see a script, they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is exactly what I would have said. And so
Yeah.
that's when you know that you've done a really good job. Like we listened, we ingested it, we get it, and now we can do it on your behalf. So now they don't have to spend a lot of time handing us a lot of the content and the language and what they want to use. We are truly now an extension of their business.
Wow, that's awesome. And so do you guys mainly focus on for B2B, is it mainly content and really doing the organic side, or do you guys do paid as well? How does that kind of work?
Yeah, so we're like I mentioned, we do everything that you would expect from a traditional marketing or advertising agency. So everything from branding and image development, visual identity, and all of those things, a lot of content, advertising, web development, a lot of public relations. That's really key in this area, event planning, and kind of everything in between.
Mhm.
So where we often end up is we do some social. B2B is not as much as consumer based, but being able to develop a presence. And a lot of times with those B2B clients, the social is more of a recruitment tool to show the behind the scenes and the culture of a company if they're in growth mode and they need to hire a bunch of people.
Mhm.
We do some paid advertising, for instance, like our education clients. We've got some healthcare clients. Trying to think of others where we will do usually search based, and we really try to niche that down a lot.
Awesome. Wow. Okay. And when you were in seventh grade, was it always when you were no, you're all good. When you were in seventh grade and you were thinking about doing the ad agency, did you know at that time that it would be this is crazy, but did you know at that time it would be like for B2B, or was it just I just want to have an ad agency? So when you were in seventh grade, did you always think, even at that time, that you'd have a B2B agency?
No, not at all. Back then, yeah, you just envisioned the Madison Avenue, New York City big agency focusing on the big consumer brands like it didn't even really occur to me that businesses did marketing or advertising to other businesses. That just wasn't
Yeah.
anything that any of us were exposed to back then. It wasn't until I was in-house at a law firm
Mm.
that I realized that there was nobody that understood how to work with organizations like ours. And so that's when I saw the gap in the market and said, that's something I can fill.
Wow, that's cool. And it's this, I feel like it's this thing that's been like almost training you your whole life. You're looking at ads, you're seeing the psychology behind them and what they're using, and you're naturally trained to notice gaps in the market, which was something that I think a lot of people, if they're looking to get into marketing or if they're business owners that are thinking about marketing, should start to look at ads differently and start to notice gaps in the market. Those are great. Something that a lot, speaking of B2B, that's something that a lot of tech companies don't even do is they go product first and then they think about the product market fit when it should be the other way around. What's the gap in the market? What can I use my skills to create? And it seems like you did that perfectly and you had the skills and all that stuff. So what an interesting journey.
Yeah, one of the things I always tell anyone that wants to pick my brain is just that curiosity element.
Hmm.
That just keeping an open mind and being able to see things that are happening within an industry, within a company, within a market, within whatever. And I was very lucky to have a lot of opportunities early in my career to be able to do that. You talk about those 10,000 hours. I,
Right.
I started those 10,000 hours way back when. I had quite a bit of a head start, but I always joke that I don't have any skills, that I'm not a writer, I'm not a designer, I'm not a web developer. Like those are not the things that I do.
Yeah.
But where I can bring my talent to the table is that connecting the dots and being able to see how things work together, where things might be improved, and how we can tell a story to be able to sell that service.
So I'd love to discuss the power of just showing up, which is something that you mentioned off camera, but how has this philosophy shaped your approach to leadership, to client relationships, and the way that you've built Pinstripe marketing over the years?
Yeah, I've always been a habitual joiner.
Hmm.
And so being in all these associations and things I've always been able to meet the right person at the right time. And
Hmm.
so I was able to build a team of freelancers through the Advertising Federation, potential clients through the Legal Marketing Association. And a lot of it is just taking a risk. Like many years ago, we sponsored one of the morning breakfast meetings with the local leadership organization. And part of the sponsorship was you got to introduce the speaker. And that day, like only 15 people showed up in the room. And I
Hmm.
was like, oh, great. What a waste of money to sponsor this. But the speaker was the head of the sports group within the city that was responsible for bringing sporting events to St. Petersburg. And so I introduced him, he did his speech. And in that speech, he was talking about the oldest college football all-star game and how it was going to be coming to St. Petersburg and what that was going to mean for the city and what that was going to look like. And the beneficiary was Shriners Hospital for Children and this great organization. And I didn't really think a whole lot of it, but after his speech, he came up to me and handed me his card. And we're going to need some marketing.
Hmm.
And so he introduced me to the director of marketing at Shriners Hospitals. We hit it off immediately, and they ended up becoming the agency's largest client for 8 years in a row before the game moved back out to Vegas.
Wow.
And
That's a,
so talk about right place, right time, and
yeah.
just taking the risk and doing it. Like it changed my agency completely back then.
Wow, that's amazing. What a good story and just
Yeah.
shows the power of just showing up every day and no
Yeah,
matter
they're
what
not going to
it
knock
is.
on your door. You got to go get them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Even on social media, if you're posting content, people get mad that they're only getting like 300 likes or whatever it is on a post. And imagine speaking in front of a room of 300 people. That's a pretty big room. Yeah. And so it's that same thing, even online, just showing up or in person. This has been so great, Ginger. Where can people learn more about you? Where can people learn more about your agency?
Yeah, well, the address for the agency is pinstripemarketing.com. And we are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and post not as often as we should. We are the cobbler's children when it comes to that. But there's a little bit of information about us and some cool behind the scenes.
Awesome. Well, very cool. Thank you so much for being on and have a great day.
Thanks, you too.